What is up, everybody? Svenddiesel here with Sportsman's Warehouse. We're going to be tying up a Chubby Chernobyl. This is a super effective pattern for the summer months, imitating an adult stonefly, ants, grasshoppers, anything terrestrial that seems to be floating on the lakes or rivers. I fish them in sizes 2 to 12. And so let's go ahead and get started with the materials list. First, we're going to be using an Umpqua U001. This is a size 8 that we're going to be tying up today. And then we're going to be using some 6/0 white thread. You can also, this is about 140 denier. You can also fish it or tie it with like a 200 denier. When you're cranking on the foam, you want to make sure you're not cutting it. We got some 2mm fly foam. For some of the bigger sizes, I go with a 4mm. And we're going to be using some ice dub golden brown. This is one of my favorite for my Chubby Chernobyls. And we're going to be using some Zelon white for the wing. So the last thing we're going to be tying in is the rubber legs. These are the barred rubber legs. They're a little bit thick, but I like them because they stay out and they're durable. So let's get started. We're going to be putting the hook in the vise, and we're going to make sure that it's nice and secure. We want to ping test it. That way we're not going to be worrying about when we crank on that foam that it comes off or shifts and potentially goes into our fingers. So let's start our thread right here behind the hook eye. Wrapping our wraps down the shank of the hook with some open wraps. That helps for gripping the foam later down the process, and we'll cut out that tag end right there at the point of the hook. Now, forgot to mention, we're going to be using some monoflash. This is the color pearl. I use yellows and golds quite a bit, and we're going to take 3 strands out, and I'm going to take those 3 strands and basically fold them in half at the middle, and then we will fold them in half again. So we take those 3 strands and potentially turn it into 12. I lost a few in this process, and you don't have to have the exact number, but I just want a good group of flash coming off the back of this hook. And so we'll tie that in, making sure that that crystal flash grouping kind of stays on the top of the shank with about 3 to 4 wraps, and then I will simply fold these tag ends over off the back, basically doubling our flash again. So now we've got about 15 to 20 strands of flash coming off the back. So we turn the 3 into a lot, so we're not wasting a lot of material, and we'll do some over under wraps to kind of create a nice little grouping there, and then we will trim those roughly the length of the hook gap. I like to go a little bit longer though, and that way we're using our hook gap as our reference. So when we have a smaller hook, all the lengths of the tails will be the same. So just kind of use hook points and hook sizes as your reference point for tying in materials. And so let's do the same process. I'm going to take my foam and measure the hook gap, and now I know how wide to cut this foam. So I'll just take that measurement, run my scissors, and I'll cut the whole strip of this foam, and out of that we'll get 2 or 3 bodies. I generally tie a bunch of these at a time before heading out on a trip. So just simply cut that down, and then we will use that as the width of the foam, and then you can see it's the width of the foam, and then I'm going to cut it 1.5 times the length of the hook shank. So there we go. We've got rough body. I'll trim off the tail, kind of round those edges, because usually on most insects they kind of taper towards the back, and so we'll have the foam that kind of rounds out, and then the crystal flash that's basically at the rear of our body. So that looks really nice. We've got good proportion. We're going to be tying that in, but first we're making this a really chubby Chernobyl. So you can either, cut a strip of foam that's roughly half of the width of the hook gap, or I'll just take this extra piece here and just cut it, and then we will use this on another fly as well, but I'm only going to use one of these, and I'll take it and I'll tie it in at an angle towards me with about 4 to 5 wraps, getting it real nice and secure. And this is going to be our underbody. So we're double foaming this fly, and it's going to float for days and be durable. And so I'll just take that and start palmering it around, wrapping over the previous wrap about, I don't know, half the foam. But you'll get a good sense of how much to overwrap that as you're tying your first couple, because we have a uniform body there, and that's what we're going for. So we'll tie off that foam with some wraps behind and in front, trim that out, and then I'll do a couple more wraps, kind of trapping that tag end right here, and also pinching down this foam, because I want about a hook eye's gap between the foam body and the hook eye, and that's where we're going to be tying off our fly later down the road. I'm going to take a little bit of super glue and just rub it on the top of this foam, one, to create durability so this foam's not going to shift on me, and two, we're going to be getting a ton of hits on this, and so we want to make sure that this eye stub isn't going to be deteriorated and come undone. And so this eye stub is going to be bonding to that super glue, which is going to be bonding to the fly and make for a really durable fly. So take about a small clump and just kind of twist it on your thread. It doesn't need to be super tight, but the key is you don't want to tie on like a big clump of it, like a loose noodle. Like that last little chunk right there, it was probably too much, but the super glue's bonding it. And so I would rather recommend that you do this dubbing of the body in 2 to 4 sessions rather than just one big clump of eye stub. That way you have better control, more uniformity, and it makes for a tighter, more durable fly. And so you can see right now we're at 2 sessions, and I'll probably get away with a third. Let's see if I can do a little bit of a longer clump of eye stub on here. But like I said, you have more control the thinner and tighter you get this, but we don't want it super tight because we still want it to be a buggy fly. And just to twist it on. You can also use some dubbing wax if you struggle to get that to twist on. And I want just a little bit more to help create that taper. So it's a process that you can adjust and go to, and then as we get that body, I'm just going to advance it up to my hook point. And yes, I just wrapped through the eye stub with just regular thread. You're not going to see it. And we're going to take our foam body now, and I will apply a little bit of glue on there just to help keep it in place, bonding that eye stub to that foam body to this top body. And we will go ahead and place it where we want it, and go do about 2 loose wraps, really holding that in position. And once you do that and get it in position, then we can kind of crank on the 3rd and 4th to really secure that foam in. And make sure it's where we like it. That looks pretty good. So next step is the wing. This is the rear wing. So I took 2 strands of that Zelon. I'm going to fold it in half and cut it. So now we've got 4 strands, and I'm going to have it extending out beyond that foam, and I'll tie it in with 1 wrap, and then I will try to pinch this wing so that it's going backwards. It's not necessary. This is probably more of a OCD-ness on my part. I kind of want it to look like it's going back, and you can see it's not cooperating with me. It's a little bit slippery. Let's do 1 more wrap over this to really secure it down, and then I will pinch it and trap it, and there we go. Got it. Okay, there we go. So we got our wing. It's going back. When that is wet, it's going to splay out. I just kind of cut it at a 45-degree angle so that it's going back to almost where that crystal flash is ending. And then next step is we're going to tie in our rubber legs. So I take half a strip out of the pack, and then I cut it in half, and we tie it in right there, just 1 wrap. It pinches. You can adjust it to where you want it by simply manipulating those and pulling it towards you. And then I do a securing wrap, and then we'll do the same process on this side. I'll do 1 wrap, kind of pinch it in, make sure it's where I want it, and then I'll do a securing wrap, and then a couple more wraps just for durability. But we're going to be covering that up, and also helping to push that wing back is some eye stub. So go ahead and grab a small clump and twist it onto your thread, and then kind of push it up, and we will be doing about 3 to 4 wraps of eye stub. If you can still see your thread after you do this, just put a little more eye stub on. So I'll pull that wing back, I'll wrap it around, and this eye stub also helps to splay out those legs. And now this is, I just kind of loosely palmer this up and through to about 2 eye lengths behind. There's another method of tying this where you don't eye stub the body in the beginning, like the whole body, whereas right then I would have lifted everything up and eye stubbed the body to advance it, and you cover, that way you don't see that thread. But the way I brush it out and tie these and how much eye stub we have on there, you can't see the thread anyway. So this is just an easier way. I find it easier to eye stub it in the beginning than it is to deal with the legs. Now we secured our foam, and so we're going to be, instead of doubling this up, I'm tripling this Zelon, so now we have 6 strands. I want a heavier wing on the front end, and same process, I'm going to make sure that goes back to where my 45 degree would be for that wing, and then I'll pull the front back and try and trap and secure it like we did before, hopefully a little bit easier this time around. And there we go, got it. and that's going to be covered up with some ice stubs, so we probably won't see it, but let's go ahead and just clean that up a tad bit, and then we'll go ahead and secure our rubber legs at this point after we trim this. So you can see we've got a nice wing that's forming a 45-degree angle back to that crystal flash. And when this is wet, like I said, we're worrying about profile, and this is going to kind of mat down on each side when it's wet. You can also use this Xelon in the high vis colors such as like yellow, chartreuse, or orange, so it's easier to see, but I really like the white. The only time I use that chartreuse or orange is when I'm fishing at the dusk hour. Those colors are a little bit more visible than white for me personally. So tying that leg, adjust it to where you want it just by simply pulling on those two legs loosely. If you break it at this point, one, you could use a more durable rubber like these, or two, better tie in another one, because that just tells you wrap too tight or you're using too thin of a thread and you cut the leg. And better to do it now than the first fish who takes it takes all your legs. So we've got our legs secure. Let's ice stub it again. This ice stub, 1, forces the wing back, 2, covers up our thread, and 3, splays out those rubber legs a little bit to make it look buggier and give it better profile. So go ahead and spin that on, and we will just palmer it up and around. And like I said, you don't want it to be like a big ball of ice stub there, but pretty much try and match it to how this looks, and you'll be good to go. So just check those legs, they look good, and then we'll simply lift everything up and do about 4 to 5 wraps here at the head just to kind of force that foam to sit up, and then we'll go ahead and do a 3-turn whip finish. So grab your whip finish tool, or you could half hitch it as well, and we will just pull everything back, or you could use like a hair clip or something to hold this back and do a 3-turn whip finish. And you could also have a little bit of head cement on at this point. I'm just going to use a little bit of UV resin to secure my fly, but there's so many different ways you could do this. So let's we got that nice and secure. We'll go ahead and trim that out, and I'll flip it over. I'm using a thin resin that soaks into my thread wraps there, and so I'll just put a little dab right there, trying not to get it into the eye, because then we create a mess. And we'll just cure that up for about 10 seconds here. And before you fish this, it could be a good idea to set it out in the sun if you're rushing through this, or I know they make UV lights that can sit on your desk. But we'll check all our legs, and then we'll trim them. And I don't really have a measuring for this. It's kind of eyeballing, because some of them go skewy different directions, and so I just basically want them to be sticking out to have a stability when in the river. And then I will cut this head a little bit shorter so it's roughly the hook gap in length, and this is going to be a freaking sweet fly to fish. So the last step is we Velcro out this belly, and now we're covering up any thread that we used and also making it really buggy. So it comes in a bunch of different colors, all these materials. Tie them up, fish them. Thanks for watching.